Well, before we move on to caloric deficit, how do you determine their maintenance calories? And then what percent do you actually reduce their calories by to determine a caloric deficit?
Yes. So now you've asked a very question I love because my lab has been very focused on this. What's the extent of the caloric deficit? So first of all, there's two ways to determine your maintenance calories. And let's define maintenance calories. Maintenance calories is your normal amount of food that you're eating, whereby you're not gaining weight or losing weight. So you're maintaining your weight with the normal amount of calories that you're bringing in. And it's important that we have that knowledge because then we can dial in how many calories we need to reduce that you're getting in a day. So there's two ways to estimate how many what your maintenance calories are. I'll go with the quick method, and then I'll go with I'll call it my preferred method, which is what we do in my lab's research. The quick method is to use one of these metabolic rate estimation equations. So some people may have heard of Harris-Benedict equation, the Cunningham equation, De Lorenzo. So that estimates what your resting metabolic rate is, which is about 70% of the total calories that you're expending. What you do is once you have that, and again, all you need is your height, your weight, your sex, and some of them your age, and you'll be able to get relatively close to your resting metabolic rate. Then you take that and you multiply it by an activity factor. That activity factor is dependent upon how active you are. Or if you're sedentary, we usually say about 1.2. Multiplier your resting metabolic rate by 1.2. If you're moderately active, 1.55. So that method is quick, right? You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to know your personal demographics and an estimation of how active you are. And that will get close to your maintenance calories. So very quick, and a lot of researchers use that method. The other method takes a little more effort, but I love the second method that I'm going to explain because it's very educational. So what we do is we have our subjects track all of their food for a 2-week period, so a minimum of 14 days. And we instruct them when they're doing this, do not change anything about how you eat. It has to be your normal food intake. And then the second thing we have them do is weigh themselves every single morning during these 2 weeks. And if they find out that they're not gaining weight or losing weight, then we have identified their maintenance calories over that 2-week average. Now, I always like to explain it like this. That second approach, yes, it takes longer, but where's that number coming from? Where's the maintenance calories coming from? It's coming from the actual subject's body weight and their own food intake. The quick method is coming from an equation that some demographics went into of the person, and the other thing that went into that was an estimated activity factor. So it's not as precise as the way that I prefer, which is a little more complex, takes a little more time, but I'm convinced that you get a much closer, true maintenance calorie level.
And then where do they go from there in terms of weight loss?
Yeah, so that's where, again, my lab's been very focused on how much of a caloric deficit. So let's use 2,000 calories as an example. If your maintenance calories is 2,000 calories per day, and again, let's define that. On average, you're eating 2,000 calories. You're not gaining weight and you're not losing weight. Not gaining fat, not losing fat. We need to have some type of intake that's less than that. But what's ideal? Well, if you get it too low, now we're going to increase hunger more than what we would want to. If it gets too low, we're going to sacrifice some muscle mass, and we definitely don't want that. And we are significantly increasing a rebound effect, some people call it a fat overshoot effect, where I can go on a crash diet for a few weeks, but as soon as that's over, your body is now primed to increase body fat deposition after that period. Now, on the other extreme, or the other end of the equation, we don't want to just reduce a little bit, because reducing a little bit may cause an elevated hunger. And also, people can get discouraged if they're not seeing body fat being lost. So what's the sweet spot? And here's what we've been able to find. And this is through approximately about 5 to 6 studies in my lab. What we've been able to do is say that a 25% caloric deficit, so 25% lower than your maintenance calories. So that would be for somebody who has a 2,000 calorie maintenance level. If they can go to 1,500 calories on average, what that does is 2 things. It causes significant losses of body fat, and it allows for the maintenance of their muscle mass, their lean mass stores. Now, one other assumption with that is we assume that protein is adequate, and we assume that they're resistance training. So if those 2 things are in play, 25%, really, at least in our reports, 100% of the weight loss is coming from fat stores, typically.
That's really important to point out because most individuals who yo-yo diet end up losing a percentage of fat, yes, but also over a period of time, each cycle loses skeletal mass, which is a major problem. You mentioned this fat overshoot effect. Why, when an individual crash diets, why would they not then be able to, say, go through a period where they're really, I don't know, putting on muscle? Why does the majority of that tend to be fat after?